Candles will be lit in many homes tonight, just as they are on producer Sky's sweater for the start, Loren, of Hanukkah.
Yeah, and of course, you can go to our Instagram page, CJOB's Instagram page, to see Sky's gorgeous sweater in celebration of Hanukkah, which is, of course, an 8-day Jewish holiday that usually falls in December. Like many celebrations this year, it's going to look a little different, but our next guest says that's no reason not to have some fun and some hope. And we're pleased to be joined by Rabbi Matthew Leibl. Good morning, Matthew.
Good morning, Brett, Loren. Nice to have you. Nice to be here.
I wish we could do this in person, but that's going to be a few more months away yet, Matthew. But in the meantime, I'm just curious how you're feeling. You know, a day like today, I know, is usually a time to get together with family and do all sorts of things, and it is going to be a bit different this year.
Yeah, certainly. You know, the pandemic has affected everybody, and one of the big traditions when it comes to Hanukkah for Jewish people is to have at least one, maybe a couple big parties where you've got your extended family, you know, the cousins are all together, the big family tree, friends, and it becomes a really like one of the highlight, you know, celebrations of the year. But we can't do that this year. But still, people within their own homes can do Hanukkah, and that's really where, you know, Hanukkah usually takes place because it's 8 nights. The big party is only one of the nights, but every night pretty much you're with your immediate family. You're in your household. That's a word we've been using a lot these days. And you can go through the rituals of lighting candles, saying blessings, having a few special foods, and playing Dreidel, a couple of the Hanukkah things. They still work within the home.
So what will be happening in homes tonight? What's one of the big traditions for that?
Well, for the first night of Hanukkah, you start off, we've got like a special menorah that we call a Chanukah because it's special for the holiday of Hanukkah based on the number of candles it holds. It holds a total of 9 candles, one for each night. You add an extra candle every night. And then there's a 9th candle that we actually use every night called the shamash. It's a helper candle. You light that candle first, and then you light the other candle. So tonight, you light the shamash, and then you put one candle in the menorah, in the Chanukah, and you light it, say a few blessings, sing a few songs, and then after that, I guess it depends on what your family is. My wife has been a little bit distracted, understandably, so the latkes will be made over the weekend, and that's when I'll get to sample some of those. But we'll probably play a little bit of Dreidel, spin Dreidel tonight, maybe sing a few other Hanukkah songs, and then each night from now on, you add another candle to the Chanukah, and by the last night, the whole thing will be burning bright.
I want to ask you in a moment, Matthew, the meaning behind Hanukkah and some of the traditions that are part of it and celebrations. But you mentioned latkes, so I have to talk about the food. What's traditionally on the menu this time of year?
Well, actually, the two things go together, Loren. So the whole quick synopsis of Hanukkah is that it's a 2,000-year-old holiday that celebrates miracles, specifically the miracle of the Maccabees, this kind of ragtag Jewish thrown together army that overcame their oppressors. But then more specifically, this miracle where when the Maccabees and their followers went into the temple to rededicate it, they went to light the big menorah, the menorah that was supposed to be burning all day, all night, always burning. And back in those days, they used oil. They couldn't find any oil. They found this tiny little vat of oil. They thought, it's never going to last until we can make more. What do? They poured it in. They lit it anyway. And the real miracle, the reason why we have an 8-night festival is because that little vat of oil lasted for 8 full days. So we have a Hanukkah celebration where we light candles for 8 nights. As a result, the foods are all kind of connected to this tradition of oil. So I guess the two main things that you would see are latkes, potato pancakes, I guess for lack of a better term. Usually there's no dairy anywhere there because they're often served on the side with meat, though I did get invited to someone's house once upon a time where they served latkes for dinner, which kind of felt like serving French fries for dinner, but that's another story. So there's latkes. And then the other thing is in Hebrew, we call them sufganiyot. In Winnipeg, I think specifically, we call them jam busters. Other places, they call them jelly donuts, fried in oil. So it's not exactly like those two foods alone cover all the food groups, but they're often the main features of what you're going to be having on the side and for dessert with Hanukkah.
We were talking earlier this week on the show about playing games, and you mentioned playing Dreidel. And please forgive my ignorance on this, but I've known the term forever, but I've never actually taught myself what is Dreidel and how do you play it?
When we can get together in person, bring down a wad of cash and I'll teach you, and we'll get together and I'll show you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm actually not that good. I lose all the time. It's really quite embarrassing. A dreidel is a spinning top. It's a four-sided spinning top. On each of the sides, there's a Hebrew letter. And the 4 Hebrew letters, it's an acronym. They stand for a phrase that, and if you translate to English, is a great miracle happened there. So the dreidel is a game, but in a sense, it ties us back into this miracle that always reminds us. In fact, if you get a dreidel in the land of Israel, the 4th letter is changed so that the acronym can be a great miracle happened here, which is kind of a cool thing. But the idea is that each of the letters, you spin it, and then when it lands, whatever letter it lands on, it kind of determines what you do. Everybody antes into a pot with pennies or gold coins or chocolate, whatever. And if it lands on one of the letters, you get nothing next turn. If it lands on another letter, you win the whole pot. Another letter, half the pot, and another letter, you have to contribute extra to the pot. So it's. I think that I'd be able to teach it to you pretty quickly, and then we could see, how it lands.
I don't know. Both Brett and I were lamenting that we're slow on the pickup, Brett, right? When it comes to just try to figuring out games. So you might find yourself quite heavy in gold coins, although I have no idea where one gets gold coins. So
they're not real gold coins. I mean, there's a tradition, a little bit of a tradition of gift giving with Hanukkah that's probably more influenced by the fact that it's so close to Christmas, and gift giving is a big part of Christmas. It's not really part of the tradition, but there is an old tradition of little kids getting what we call and it's a Yiddish word, gelt. So they would get little gold coins, but now they come in a little bag and they're chocolate. They're just, you peel off so we can play with chocolate gold coins that don't burn a hole in your pocket at all. So
that's what I was imagining. I was imagining those wrappers anyway. So I thank you for explaining that.
You got it.
I want to ask about just, you talk about the message this time of year. And I had said earlier that I had exchanged an email with you, and I couldn't make to speak with you because really at the end of the day, we're all looking for a little hope right now. And so that's also what Hanukkah is about in terms of being this festival of hope.
Well, totally. And you use a term that I've actually been using this year to describe Hanukkah especially. We call Hanukkah the Festival of Lights. The candle is a big part of it. The candles are really the focal point. And in fact, our tradition is not just that you light your menorah, your Hanukkah in your home, but you actually put it in the window. You put it in the windowsill, and the idea is that everybody passing by will see it, because making the miracle of this miraculous oil, this miracle, making it public is the whole idea. So people passing by will be inspired. They'll be, just the way other lights can kindle other candles. They get this feeling of hope. So it's not just a festival of light, but when you're talking about, the time of the year where the daylight hours are the shortest, where it keeps getting darker and darker every day. And then there's this metaphor of the fact that this pandemic feels like darkness surrounding us, taking away our ability to see and make decisions. Lighting candles at night, when as it gets to the darkest point of the year, it becomes more, a festival of hope. And this idea that people passing by will be like, oh yeah, there is going to be something at the end of this. We are going to keep getting through. We have to keep being patient and do the right things, but the daylight hours will start to get longer. And in the meantime, we can light candles to brighten up and to give us light and warmth, even in the darkest nights.
Here's another ignorant question, and forgive me for this, but why is Hanukkah sometimes spelled with a C and sometimes not?
Oh, you've touched on something that just my wife and I, Brett, were talking about yesterday, and it's like the bane of my existence. I think it's because, I know it's because in Hebrew we have a few sounds, most notably the ch sound, that isn't part of English, right? And it can be difficult for non-Hebrew speakers and people who don't have that in their native tongues to say that ch sound. I say it's actually not that hard. Imagine you have like a little popcorn caught in the back of your throat. Everybody's done that. It's easy. But because it's hard for some people to say Hanukkah, it's not easy to translate that into English, it kind of gets softened into Hanukkah. But in the actual Hebrew, there's no question, it's Chanukah, which means dedication, the rededication of the temple. But look, I'm not going to split hairs over this. If people want to do Hanukkah, where I really figure out that there's an issue is, do they have 2 Ks towards the end or 1 K? Why do you need 2 Ks? It looks weird.
I just this morning, Brett, it wasn't an ignorant question because poor Sky, who's wearing her sweater with the lit up menorah on it, I said, sorry, I just have to ask this question. Do you have any idea which way I should be spelling it, and why is it spelled 3 different ways? And I can never remember if there's 2 N's or 2 K's. So I'm happy to know that, that's a question being asked universally, Matthew.
Yeah, you just need to, if you're going with me, and I'm a bit of a stickler, I would write Chanukah. No double K, no Hanukkah. Go for it. Everybody should say Hanukkah and really get into it. It makes it easier because the greeting you say for people when you want to say like a happy holiday, you say Chag Sameach. So if you can't get the chuz down, you're going to have a lot of trouble saying that. So it's good practice. So you can say Chag Chanukah Sameach.
More fun that way.
Totally.
Well,
Enjoy.
Rabbi Matthew Leibl joining us live on 680 CJOB. Happy Hanukkah to you, sir.
Oh, see, look at that. Now your day can only get better from here. You crushed it. Thank you so much for having me. And,
Next on the list is dreidel crushing.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. That one's tough to do without during the pandemic. So we'll have a dreidel tournament live on the air maybe this time next year.
I hope so. I look forward to it. That gives me some hope. Thank you so much for joining us, Rabbi. 848 on 680 CJOB. I guess, Loren, I need to go on our Instagram post and change the spelling of Happy Hanukkah.